Hi, my name is Andaiye Spencer. I went to Shanos Elementary School and the University of Michigan and Eastern Michigan University and the University of Exeter. I work for Bright Futures right now, do after school programs for Perry Early Learning Center and soon to be Estabrook Elementary. Um, and I really like to build things. I'm a carpenter, so I like to be in my garage and carrying big stuff and having big tools and things like that. And I think that's one of the things that I have in common with the main character in this book, Thunder Rose by Kadir Nelson. Oh, by Hardine Nolan, illustrated by Kadir Nelson. Thunder Rose. And this one was personally signed for me. Rose was the first child born free and easy to Jackson and Millicent Magruder. I recall most vividly the night she came into this world. Hail and rain, flashing lightning, and booming thunder pounded the door, inviting themselves in for the blessed event.
That's a cool illustration.
Taking in her first breath of life, the infant did not cry out. Rather, she sat up and looked around. She took hold of that lightning, rolled it into a ball, and set it above her shoulders, while the thunder echoed all over the other. They say this just accentuated the fact that the child had the power of thunder and lightning coursing through her veins. She's gonna grow up to be good and strong, all right, Doc Holliday said. The child turned to the good doctor with a thoughtful glance and replied, I reckon I will want to do more than that. Thank you very kindly. Shifting her gaze to the two loving lights shining on her, which were her ma and pa, she remarked, much obliged to you both for this chance to make my way in the world. Then she announced to no one in particular, I'm right partial to the name Rose. So much in love with this gift of their lives, her ma and pa hovered over her in watchful splendor. Overcome with that love, they lifted their voices in song, an old song, a melody so sweet and true, a lullaby passed down from the ages, echoing since the beginning of time. There's music ringing so sweetly in my ears, the newborn exclaimed. It's giving me a fortunate feeling, rumbling deep in the pit of me. I'll register it here at the bull's eye set at the center of my heart and see what I can do with it one day. Rose snored up plenty that first night, breathing on her own, rattling the rafters to the roof right along with the booming thunder. There was nothing quiet about her slumber. She seemed determined to be just as forceful as that storm. With the thunder and lightning keeping watch over her the rest of the night, her ma and pa just took to calling her Thunder Rose. Whoops. I think that's a really good name for her. The next morning, when the sun was high yellow in that billowy blue sky, Rose woke up hungry as a bear in spring, but not the least bit ornery. Minding her manners, she politely thanked her ma and pa for milk, but it was not enough to quench her hungry thirst. Rose preferred instead to drink her milk straight from the cow. Her mom was right grateful to have such a resourceful child. No other newborn had the utter strength to lift a whole cow clear over her head and almost drink it dry. In a moment's time, Rose did, and quite daintily so. She was pretty as a picture, had the sweetest disposition, but don't let yourself be misled. That child was full of lightning and thunder. Out on that paper-bag, brown, dusty, wide-open space, Rose often was fond of humming a sweet little tune as she did her chores. And true to her word, Rose did more than grow good and strong. The 2-year-old became quite curious about the pile of scrap iron lying next to the barn. Rose took a good-sized piece, stretched it here, bent it, and twisted it there. She constructed a thunderbolt, black as pitch, to punctuate her name. She called it coal. Wherever she went, coal was by her side. Noticing how skilled Rose was with the metal, her pa made sure there was extra supply of it always around. At the age of 5, Rose did a commendable job of staking the fence without a bit of help. During her 8th and 9th years, Rose assembled wood blocks she used to play with and constructed a building tall enough to scrape the sky, always humming as she worked. She made a skyscraper. Oh my goodness, at 5 years old. By the time she turned 12, Rose had perfected her metal bending practices. She formed delicately shaped alphabet letters to help the young ones learn to read. For his birthday, Rose presented her pa with a branding iron, a circle with a big MAC for Magruder in the middle. Just in time, too, because a herd of quick-timbered longhorn steer was stampeding its way up from the Rio Grande. They were plowing straight toward her front door. Rose performed an eye-catching wonder, the likes of which was something to see. Running lightning fast toward the herd, using coal for support, Rose vaulted into the air and landed on the back of the biggest lead steer, like he was a merry-go-round pony. Grabbing a horn in each hand, Rose twisted that varmint to a complete halt. It was just enough to restrain that top bull and the rest of the herd. But I believe what touched that critter's heart was when Rose began humming her little tune. That cantankerous ton of beef was restless no more. He became playful as a kitten and even tried to purr. Rose named him Tater on account that was his favorite vegetable. Hearing Rose's lullaby put that considerable creature to sleep was the sweetest thing I had witnessed in a long time. After the dust had settled, Ma and Pa counted 2,700 head of cattle after they added 500 that they had already had. Using the scrap iron, Rose had to add a new section to the bullpen just to hold them all. She loves her Tater. What'd you do with the wire, Rose? Ma asked, surprised and pleased at her daughter's latest creation. Oh, that, she said. While I was staking the fence, Pa asked me to keep little Barbara J company. That little twisty pattern seemed to make the baby laugh, so I like to think of it as Barbara's wire. That was right clever of you to be so entertaining to the little one like that, her ma said. Rose just blushed. Over the years, that twisty wire caught on, and folks just called it barbed wire. Rose and her pa spent the whole next day sorting the animals that had not been branded. One day soon, before the cold weather sets in, she told her pa, I'll have to get this herd up to Chisholm Trail and to the market in Abilene. I suppose Tater is the right kind of horse for the long drive northward. She's gonna ride that longhorn steer like a horse. People don't usually do that. On Rose's first trip to Abilene, while right outside of Caldwell, that irascible, full of outrage, iron outlaw Jesse Baines and his gang of desperados tried to wrestle the herd away from Rose. Using the spare metal rod she always carried with her, Rose lassoed those hot-tempered hooligans good and tight. She dropped them off to jail and tied up nice in a neat iron bow. Wasn't any trouble at all, she told the Sheriff Weaver. Somebody had to put a stop to their thieving ways. But that wasn't the only thieving going on. The mighty sun was draining the moisture out of every living thing it touched. Even the rocks were crying out. Those clouds stood by and watched it all happen. They weren't even trying to be helpful. That's my favorite picture.
love the colors.
While the air had turned so dry and sour, time seemed to all but stand still, and there was not a drop of water in sight. Steer will not move without water, and that was making those bulls mad, real mad. And when a bull gets angry, it's like a disease that's catching, making the rest of the herd mad too. Tater was looking parched and mighty thirsty. I've got to do something about this, Rose declared. Stretching out several iron rods, lasso fashion, then launching coal high in the air, Rose hoped she could get the heavens to yield forth. She caught a hold of a mass of clouds and squeezed them hard, real hard. But all the while humming her song, gentle rain began to fall. But anyone looking could see there was not enough moisture to refresh 2 ants, let alone a herd of wild cows. Suddenly, a rotating column of air came whirling and swirling around, picking up everything in its path. It sneaked up on Rose. "Whoa there now, just hold a minute," Rose called out to the storm. Tater was helpless to do anything about that sort of wind. Those meddlesome clouds caused it. They didn't take too kindly to someone telling them what to do, and they were set on creating a riotous rampage all on their own. This riled up Rose so much she became the only 2-legged tempest to walk the western plains. "You don't know who you're fooling with," Rose called out to the storm. Her eyes flashed lightning. She bit down and gnashed thunder from her teeth. I don't know why anyone would want to mess with a pretty young woman who had the power of thunder and lightning coursing through her veins. But pity for them, the clouds it did. Rose reached for her iron rod, but there was only one piece left. She didn't know which way to turn. She knew coal alone was not enough to do the job right. Unarmed against her own growing thirst and the might of the elements, Rose felt weighted down. Then that churning column split, and now there were 2. They were coming at her from opposite directions. Rose had some fast thinking to do. Never being one to bow down under pressure, she considered her options. She was not sure this would come out in the end. Don't give up, Rose. Don't give up. Is this the fork in the road with which I have my final supper? Will this be my first and last ride of the roundup? She queried herself in the deeps of her heart. Her contemplations brought her a little relief as she witnessed the merciless, cataclysmic efforts of the windstorm bent on her disaster. Then the winds joined hands and cranked and churned a path heading straight toward her. Calmly, Rose spoke out loud to the storm as she stood alone to face the wreck and ruin, the multiplying devastation. "I could ride at least one of you out to the end of time, but I got this fortunate feeling rumbling deep in the pit of me, and I see what I'm to do with this day," Rose said, smiling. The winds belted at a rumbling pitch. Rose squarely faced that storm. "Come and join me, winds!" She opened her arms wide as if to embrace the torrent. She opened her mouth as if she was planning to take a good long drink. But from deep inside her, she heard a melody so real and sweet and true. And when she lifted her heart, she unleashed her song of thunder. It was a sight to see. Rose making thunder and lightning rise and fall to the ground at her command, the sound of her song. Oh, how her voice rang out so clear and real and true. It rang out from the mountaintops. It filled up the valleys. It flowed like the healing river in the breathing air around her. Those tornadoes, calmed by her song, stopped their churning masses and raged no more. Then, and gentle as a baby's bath, as a soft, drenching and soaking rain fell. And Rose realized that by reaching into her own heart and bringing forth the music that was there, she had even touched the hearts of the clouds. The stories of Rose's amazing abilities spread like wildfire far and wide. As sure as thunder follows lightning and sun follows rain, whenever you see a spark of light flash across a heavy steel gray sky, listen to the sound of that thunder and think of Thunder Rose and her song. That mighty, mighty song pressing on the bull's eye that was set at the center of her heart. The